Time now for the Educated Retirement Show with your host, Jay Kaplan. Jay discusses reverse mortgages and can answer your questions at 951-922-3532. Call lines are open at 951-922-3532. And now, here's Jay.
Yes. Please ask those questions. Give me a call anytime you like at this phone number, 866-955-2233, 866-955-2236.
2233.
Oh, give that to me again and let me do it. Boy, am I old or what? 866-955-2233. I just remarked the first hour of the show what an easy number this was for old people like me to remember. Well, so be it. Anyway, before we were before we presented Saeed with all that good stuff he said on a market report and talking about the More and More Network and avenues for everyone to start investment in real estate, we were talking about Hynek and Robert J. Hynek, right?
J. Allen Hynek.
Like I said, J. Allen Hynek. And he presented a statement on UFOs before the United Nations General Assembly on behalf of himself and ufologist and astronomer Jacques Vallée. Now, Jacques Vallée made his millions, if not billions, in computer sciences, but he has become one of the most thoughtful ufologists and all that good stuff. Anyway, Hynek published the Close Encounter Scale that better cataloged UFO sightings and served as a consultant to Steven Spielberg for the filming of Close Encounters of the Third Kind and even made a cameo appearance. Hynek's original Close Encounter Scale goes as follows. Close Encounters of the First Kind is a UFO sighting. Remember, UFO stands for unidentified flying object. It doesn't mean it came from another planet or outer space or anything like that, but it could. Close Encounters of the Second Kind is one where some kind of physical trace evidence is left behind. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is actually encountering an entity. And there was a film called Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind where that encounter became much stronger. But that's not a part of Hynek's original scale. Hynek oversaw the design of the camouflage effect for the movie Predator and even won an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for the film What Dreams May Come, 1998, based on the book by Richard Matheson and starring Robert Williams. Boy, we know Richard Matheson on this show, don't we? Since he did so many of the Twilight Zones and just so much else. What's that one about Mackinac Island?
Somewhere in Time.
Somewhere in Time. The film that was made at least 3 times, I Am Legend. So again, I was going to change this, but given exactly what was said by Saeed, I'm going to repeat it again, but I will change it. But when I was on the Ron Siegel show last week, we discussed how to really increase family wealth. There are so many ways to do that with a HECM. Take some cash, tax-free, and buy a property as a rental property. There's a lot of other things you can do. You can buy insurance. You can buy investments for your kids, annuities for the kids. You can buy insurance for yourself that'll help pay off the house. You can buy insurance with a health rider. That'll save the kids so much money. But depending on the amount of cash available, you now own a rental property and with no payments on either that or the one you live in, but you get all the extra rent from the other property, and the equity is growing on both of those. And did I mention that when you get the money, it's tax-free? Back to birthdays. And Daniel Day-Lewis, April 29th, 1957. You know what? We're going to for NASA Nelly because Daniel Day-Lewis is more earthbound, and we just talked about Hynek. So let's stick with Hynek, please. So I'm listening for her retro rockets again. There she is. Oh, by the way, I didn't show you a picture of Hynek, although some of you probably already know what he looks like. And this picture also recalls a scene from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, as you recall, but it was a much bigger globe. They rolled down the hallway. But just to give you, most other pictures always have a pipe in his mouth, so maybe that's where the scientist pipe guy came from. In any case, take it away, NASA Nelly.
April 17th, 1966. Remember in 1966 we were singing California Dreamin' and These Boots Were Made for Walkin'? You remember, don't you? In Portage County, Ohio at 5 a.m., two sheriff deputies were singing another tune and were about to enter UFO history. Deputies Dale Spa and Wilbur Neff, stopped to investigate an abandoned vehicle on an isolated stretch of road lined with trees. Spars said in an interview, "When I looked up, I saw this thing. It kept getting brighter. They heard a strange humming noise like an overloaded transformer and turned around to see a giant metallic UFO along with some kind of an antenna. It rose behind the trees and hovered above them, drenching the ground with bright light. What followed was a 100-mile-per-hour chase that took these deputies on a ride from Ohio to Pennsylvania over 86 miles. Nearby, a police chief heard the deputies' calls about lights in the sky, so he raced home to get his camera and snapped 3 photos of what he thought were 2 table saucers put together. When the object took off, so did the deputies. They described it looking like the head of a flashlight, about 40 feet wide and 20 feet high. It looked like somebody had control over it. It wasn't just floating around, they said. When they came close to it, the object would speed up. If the deputies slowed down, the object seemed to wait. When it came too close to you, you could feel the heat baking off of it. They said it was almost as if it was playing a game of cat and mouse. Along with the way, the officers were joined by another officer, Officer Wayne Houston, following in his own car. Their vehicles were running on fumes. Their tires were balding. They had alerted dispatch that 3 fighter jets were in pursuit of the aircraft. The officers could pick up chatter from the pilots on their police radio. The object hovered, then shot straight up into the sky. Hundreds of people also reported seeing the saucer and heard the steady humming sound. Not long after, Major Hector Quintana for Project Blue Book determined whether the UFO was a security threat. During an initial telephone conversation, he asked Spar, "Tell me about this mirage you saw." The major said that it was the planet Venus and that the photos were fogged with processing defects. So these police officers were chasing a planet that hummed? Really? They asked the major that if it was the planet Venus, how could it move from side to side and up and down? The response was, it was from atmospheric conditions. Officer Spar would not sign any testimony reflecting that the incident took place over just a few minutes, which is what he was urged to do by officials. And this is the same major who also investigated the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico, just 2 years earlier. The Air Force asked the officer who took the photos not to release them, but by that time the local paper already did. The story was now in the media. Spar's wife said that all sorts of people came to the house, investigators, reporters. They kept him up all night, hammering him right into the ground. He eventually had a nervous breakdown. Neff's wife said he was real white, almost in the state of shock after the chase. People would make fun of him. The other officers would go as far as to disconnect their phones permanently. Officer Houston quit the Air Force or the police force and changed his first name. Sure, I quit because of that thing. People laughed at me. The city officials didn't like police officers that chased flying saucers. The object took off into the sky but left a huge impression on all their deputies that followed them the rest of their lives. It also made an impression on filmmaker Steven Spielberg as the event was recreated in Close Encounters of the Third Kind in the chase scene of 3 police cars pursuing a UFO, now known as the Portage County UFO incident.
And they did go between state lines, I believe, also, which was shown in the movie. So thank you, NASA Nelly, so much. Oh, she's gone already. But you know what? We talked a little bit about Project Blue Book, and I skipped through it a little bit too much. Here is a neat book that I was turned on to by Chris Bissonette. You know, the guy that's going to save you $100,000 by sending when you send your kids and grandkids through college. This has just reports and reports back and forth for Blue Book. We talked about Close Encounters, and there's Close Encounters, as we all know very well. But that was a fairly long scene. The first scene, well, of course, the first scene was with the airplanes and the air traffic controller. No, that was the second scene. The first scene was in Mexico when Flight 19 was found on the sand. And then they had that long chase scene with the police, and that's what NASA Nelly was telling us, because that was a true story. Now, Daniel Day-Lewis was born January 29th, 1957, and he was born in London and attended boarding school, where he was introduced to his primary interest of woodworking, acting, and fishing. He made his film debut at age 14 in Sunday Bloody Sunday. I remember that, it's been a while, which he played a vandal destroying parked cars. That was uncredited, by the way. He excelled on stage at the National Youth Theatre in London and applied for a 5-year apprenticeship as a cabinet maker with him, and was turned down for lack of experience, but was accepted at the theater school for acting. In the 1980s, he worked in theater and television for BBC and picked up small parts in some films. His first big role was in My Beautiful Laundrette in 1985. I remember the film. He and his other young British cohorts, actor friends of the same time period as Gary Oldman, Colin Firth, and Tim Roth, were dubbed the Brit Pack. We had the Rat Pack, they had the Brit Pack. He went on to star in My Left Foot, which of course was immortalized in the film Best in Show by who? Okay, well, I'm not the only old one here. Which one? Yeah, because he had 2 left feet in the film. Anyway, which won him the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1989. He continued in films then, and took a 3-year break from acting on screen and returned with Martin Scorsese for The Gangs of New York, which we got around here somewhere, in 2002, and is noted to have stayed in character between takes. At one point, he'd been diagnosed with pneumonia, and he refused to wear a warmer coat, as it was not in keeping with the time period. That's pushing it, I think, Daniel. Anyway, Daniel starred in over 23 films and won 3 Academy Awards. The last one I think it's the last, was for Lincoln, 2013. What a great portrayal that was. What a great film that is. And he went through a lot to change himself and his voice to sound more like Lincoln, as if we had actually heard Lincoln in person. There Will Be Blood, where he won the Best Actor award in 2008, a film by Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson. We can't forget his father, Ghoulardi. And although last week on Svengoolie was good, this week, no. It's a comedy, and that's just not Svengoolie for me. But in any case, he didn't wear a coat for pneumonia. He starred in and here's a short list of films. Gandhi, 1982, My Beautiful Laundrette, 85, Room with a View, 85, My Left Foot, 89, Last of the Mohicans, 92, Gangs of New York, 2002, and that was with Scorsese again. There Will Be Blood, Paul Thomas Anderson. Very strong film if you haven't seen it. And Lincoln was done by Spielberg, so Spielberg isn't always out there in the stars. Phantom Thread was 2017, Paul Thomas Anderson again, and here is the soundtrack album, a double album, and this film I have not seen yet, so if you have, call in and let us know. Music by Johnny Greenwood is most of the film music lately from Paul Thomas Anderson films. And if you're not familiar with Johnny Greenwood, he comes from a small group, actually a monster rock group called called Radiohead. I get radios mixed up with computers, so Radiohead. But always good music, and I did tell you once how I got, quote, turned on to that while we stayed at the Ace Hotel while we went to hear some music in downtown LA, and I sure am looking forward to those days again. So just a reminder, you're listening to the Educated Retirement Radio on here on your home planet, 1490 KMET AM radio. The Mighty Met, drheckham.com, drhecm.com, or give me a call at 866-955-2233, 866-955-2233. And we've got some more birthdays, which we will go through. So please stick with us for the next half hour, because I've got about 10 minutes worth of stuff, and then I'll have to ad lib. So if you want to hear me stumble on the radio, please stay with me, because after all, we're all friends, aren't we? And please don't go away. Am I signing off too early, Sean? Well, we might as well go now, because it's a good break time right here for me. And we've got Duke Ellington supplying some of the music for us on this last half hour. And yeah, so take care of yourselves, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Some of my favorite intro music. Thank you, Sean, for that. Anyway, this is the last half hour for the Educated Retirement. And we're going to talk, we've got one more birthday yet to go. And that's Duke Ellington. So here is a special release. The complete Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington sessions. Okay, there you go. And I usually don't show the records before I talk a little bit about Duke Ellington or the artist involved. So I'll go to the artist involved. He was born April 29th of 1899 and clocked out in 1974. Born Edward Kennedy Ellington, was an American composer, pianist, and orchestra leader, as if we didn't know. Duke was born in Washington, D.C. to two pianists. He started taking piano lessons at 7 years old, and his childhood friends began calling him Duke because of his offhand manner and dapper dress. Take a look at me. Am I looking dapper? Don't answer that, Sean. He was born a musician but loved baseball. His first job was selling peanuts at Washington Senators baseball games. In 1914, while working as a soda jerk at the Poodle Dog Cafe, he wrote his first composition, The Soda Fountain Rag, which I don't think I have, but I'll look through the records. He created the piece by ear, as he had not yet learned to write and read music. He continued to listen to, watching, and imitating ragtime pianists with guidance of band leader Oliver Perry. He learned to read and write sheet music, projected a professional style, and improved his technique. Duke started to play gigs in cafes and clubs around Washington, D.C. He worked as a freelance sign painter, wow, as well as a messenger job with the U.S. Navy and State Departments as he began assembling musical groups to play for dances. His first professional group was the Duke's Serenaders, and made 75 cents on his first performance in 1917. In time, his group did clubs in Harlem and Atlantic City, and he made 8 records in 1924. That's pretty good. His group increased to 11 pieces and performed regular engagements at Harlem's Cotton Club, as well as the radio broadcasts from that club, giving Duke national exposure. That was very lucky, although he certainly had the talent. The orchestra traveled to England, Scotland, and Paris. There you go. Some members of his band stayed with the orchestra for decades. Ellington wrote that 1,000 compositions, he wrote more than 1,000 compositions. Many of his pieces have become standards, and some of his popular songs are It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing, Sophisticated Lady, Satin Doll, and I'll take a little break to show you some more albums. Now, these albums I'm going to show you, these are probably no more than 1/3 of the numbers of albums that I have. These are even stereo, and I have some of them that go way back. So here we have the Duke and the Count playing together. And there's their picture on the back. And here is a pretty early one, monaural, of course, but not LP. It's, well, it says LPM, but that, I'm not sure it's an LP curve. Definitely a 33 in a mellow tone. That is a really nice picture of him. And let me show you one more. Carnegie Hall, 1947. So I was 1 year old, and I don't remember being there. Nice picture of him on the backside here. This would be pretty interesting. I'd like to play this again here. Obviously, with 8,000 records, it takes me a while to go through them. Okay, so he recorded for Most American record companies of his era performed in and scored several films and composed a handful of stage musicals. Amongst his quotes, a problem is a chance for you to do your best. So that's a good quote to remember. A problem is a chance for you to do your best. Gray skies are just clouds passing over, another thing. And the artist must say it without saying it, okay? He has to write music about it. There are two kinds of music, good music and the other kind. Yeah, that's for sure. People do not retire. They are retired by others. Okay, well, that's something good for here on the Educated Retirement Show to be thinking about. Ellington won several Grammy Awards as well as the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1969. Just a reminder that you are listening to the Educated Retirement Radio here on your home planet, 1490 KMET, where Dr. Demento started out, AM radio, and also known or was known as the Mighty Met. So let me show you some more of these albums. And you know, Kathleen, I've got some more like that big red one, which I would like to show. I also have a four-sided, single-sided 45. Those were very expensive records at the time, really good ones. And I think it's Duke Ellington in Outer Space, which would be a really good tie-in with this. I don't think you want to go run for that yet, but speaking of outer space, here's the cosmic scene. And here's one of those great backs of records that you know, we like to look at. This one is an LP, and by LP I don't mean long playing, I mean LP curve on the sound. Yeah, I wish I'd like to go get that one.
No, cute.
What's that?
It's a cartoon.
Okay. They both the same?
Yeah.
The Queen Suite. The Ellington Suites on Pablo. He did a lot of stuff, or a lot of stuff showed up again on Pablo records. So there you go. What does this say here? Huh, okay. And what is this? Oh, that's not one.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, there's a great cover. Rockin' and Rhythm. Boy, I'd love to. You don't want to go get that red one, do you? No. Oh well. Maybe I'll show it to you next week because it's really cool. But look at the back on this one too. Is that cool? That goes back to some of those other pictures we were talking about on the backs of albums in the last week or so, right? Right. And there they are, rocking in rhythm and swinging. Associate producer, Ellington Enterprises. So there. Take the A Train is on here. Love that song, On the A Train. You know what? There's so many. In a Sentimental Mood, there's so many. And the way he does it himself with that opening is great. And here I am trying to grab more, but there aren't any more. So, sorry for the... let me try to turn that sound off. Somebody's trying to give me a call. But poop on them for now. Okay. We spoke a little earlier about the huge sellers market. And we went over that somewhat with Saeed also. Actually, we went over it quite a bit with him. And the increase in real estate sales. So just to go over what we've gone over in the past, after the COVID scare and the lockdown, well, after the beginning of the COVID scare, and the lockdown brought home buying almost to a halt, home buying activity resumed with abandon. In other words, it went nuts. With low mortgage rates, locked in and a desire for more space amongst the pandemic, Americans flooded the housing market in search of new homes. Even during the winter, when home sale activity typically slows down with the cooler weather, Americans were still buying properties well ahead of last year's pace. In many ways, the pandemic has driven this home buying craze, experts say. Well, I say it also. Two things really, that and interest rates. But this has been an accelerant to lifestyle. What I'm talking about is the COVID thing, an accelerant to lifestyle and behavioral changes that were already underway, but they were in no great rush. Case in point, the pandemic appears to have nudged the timeline forward for many millennial households who might have otherwise waited a few years to become homeowners or move up. Since the price of a home is dependent on interest rates, we are buying actually at good prices now in spite of the increase in the amount listed. So the lower the rates, the lower the overall price. Unless you're paying cash for a home, the lower the rate, the lower the actual price you're paying in your investment for that home. Older people like myself are interested in putting security into the uncertainty that COVID-19 has brought, and that means a reverse mortgage in most cases. It also means staying where you are when it comes to housing. Remember that those sales and the reasons we've given has been supercharged by interest rates, and no one, and I mean no one, expects rates to go up anytime soon. Even the Fed said so as far as they're concerned, although we got a spike last month or so because of the good economic news, and it was investors that did that, but we're back on the way down again. On top of that, so many older homeowners that have a home that they love, they're not selling. And they're happy where they are, and the COVID has actually slowed them down. So actually that has caused a shortage of available units for sale in the market. So we talked about supply and demand with Saeed, but my God, look at this. We have a supply which is way down and a demand which is way up. And what's another reason? Lumber has gone up more than 216% in the last 1 year. So Bigfoot better look out, because they are going to start losing some of their habitat before too long. And Freddie Mac estimates that we need 3.8 million more homes for sale to bring the supply and demand to equilibrium. So wow, what a difference. So again, let me remind you, the real enemy of retirement is compounding inflation. Protect yourself from it with a HECM line of credit that grows to match the inflation, and maybe even, I shouldn't say maybe, I should say probably even beats it. Absolutely meet your retirement needs, top off your tank to make it all the way. As you know, we've said that several times. And I've often reminded people that you can always make payments on a reverse mortgage. So many people say, oh, it's going to eat away all my equity if I never make payments. Well, first of all, you can always make payments. More importantly, the way that appreciation has been like 12.1% this last year, 6% usually in Orange and San Diego, and not trailed that much in the Inland Empire. Your equity is not going to go away. Your equity is going to increase faster. And I'm not saying this is for sure. I'm just saying based on past history of the last 200 years, except for 08, and that year, 1 year after that, your appreciation is the entire amount of the home's value, whereas the loan, the reverse mortgage, is only a portion of it. you are not going to, in my opinion, lose much equity, if any at all. Now, maybe in, I don't know, Kentucky, and I don't know Kentucky that well. West Virginia, and I don't know that either. I've been through there a few times, and it's definitely a beautiful state. But as my old once buddy Martin Andelman once said, you can put the loan in forward and make any payment you want. And at any time, you know, I may add, you can just think of it that you're shifting. So you can also put it in neutral and make interest-only payments. So that's going to cut your payment in half or more. And your loan amount will never increase. Although, like I said before, given the kind of appreciation, you shouldn't care about that kind of thing. So you'll be moving. Your loan balance will not be moving, but your payment will be moving to about half of what it was before. Or you can put it in reverse and make no payments at all. And as another friend of mine once said, Omar, the heck'em is just an ordinary loan. You're already familiar with it, except it has a reverse option to it. So there. So we will go over a few more things here. Now, Kathleen, we need to do this, right?
Oh.
Got to test my memory here by asking our producer, director here. On May the 1st, May Day, the giant, towering film of Deadly Mantis was released in Los Angeles, starring William Hopper. And there you go. Oh, I didn't see that other picture before. That's cool. All right, now, I'm sure you remember this. That's got to be Sean. You didn't need to answer, but I'm sure that's one of your favorite all-time films. Okay?
Yeah, the poster.
And we have a poster on the wall, but I didn't want to bring the wall in here. I thought that might be a little too much. Here's a great picture of the prop. And I've got more to say about the prop that was used here in a minute. Oh, that's cool. Mantis is definitely scary, and that's why when they talk about mantis people or that kind of thing living in the sewers of LA, it's pretty scary. And we can talk about that on another show, being such an important subject as it is. Now this one looks like the Deadly Mantis is actually dancing to Duke Ellington music. And he might be, I don't know. But let's see, what does it say? This was the day that engulfed the world in terror! Exclamation point. Deadly Mantis. Craig Stevens, William Hopper. I remember William Hopper had a bigger role than Craig Stevens. So be it. One more look for you people, you jealous people that don't remember this. And William Hopper was actually Perry Mason. He was on Perry Mason all the time. He played Paul Drake, the private detective. And he was actually the son of Hedda Hopper. And that film was produced by William Allen. And you know we've gone over William Allen and his buddy over at Universal so many times. I don't remember whether that one was Universal or not. But it was directed by Nathan Juran, Juran, who did 20 Million Miles to Earth.
This was just...
Yeah, well, we're going to come back to that. I just didn't know what order this was in. And, of course, there you go. One of the famous Harryhausen films. And speaking of Harryhausen, just to show you some more that was directed by the same feller, and also another Harryhausen. And We have a couple of Harryhausen, luckily, before he passed on, autographs. This one is on an Amtrak ticket, or back of it, because I think we took Amtrak to LA to an American Cinematheque function where he was at the Egyptian Theater in person, but there it is. We also have it on, I think, either Seventh Voyage of Sinbad or one of those in the hallway there. It's a poster that he signed. Another one of the outstanding films this guy did. What's that? What is that thing there? And why is that there?
I don't know, but he
directed that?
this film, yeah.
Okay.
He must be a producer.
Brain from, who is the producer?
The name on the top, I think.
Okay, but the director is the same guy we're talking about. And one of the great films of our famous, what's his name? John Agar. And look at that brain. And look at John Agar. Not much difference, is there? He did this also? Mm-hmm. This is really a lot of fun. I believe it's an H.G. Wells story. It's one of the first big widescreen. And it's very, very entertaining. First Men in the Moon. And I'm not sure what year this came out in. Oh, Charles Chenier Productions. So that was the same producer that did most of the Harryhausen films. That we know for sure. So therefore, associate producer Harryhausen himself, and directed by Nathan Giron. So, but this is really a lot of fun. So if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you find it and take a look. And with that, I will move on to, he also did Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, which I know we have on a double album, it's okay, we don't have it to show. A 200-foot by 40-foot paper mache model of the mantis with a wingspan of 150 feet was fitted with a hydraulic system to create the special effects. I bet that was pretty scary whether you knew what it was or not. So 2 smaller models were also built, but I want that big one. Shots of a real praying mantis were used for the scenes where the deadly mantis climbs the Washington Monument. I don't think it was the same with the grasshoppers. Remember the one with the grasshoppers? They put a picture of this building in Chicago. I think it was the chewing gum guy, right there by the river. And they just put the grasshoppers to crawl up and down the picture, and they used that. What do you got there?
Beginning of the End. That's the movie.
Oh, what was that here for?
No.
Oh, Mystery Science Theater. Didn't plan on showing this, but yeah, that was the beginning of the end. That was the one with the grasshoppers crawling up the Wrigley building. So there. Okay. The Deadly Mantis received mostly negative, how dare they, reviews at the time, as it was thought to be a ripoff of Them. And Them has been like one of our favorite films that I've talked about so many times here before. But it is a sci-fi classic. It was supposed to have been done in 3D and color. Neither of those things happened, but the title Them does pop out in color if you're watching one of the original prints. So there. So it's been a pleasure talking about these things with you, this nostalgia with you, and I appreciate so much you being here. And please, you need to stay safe, right? Because this thing's not over yet. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm home. I hope the majority of you are or are in the middle of it. No matter what you think of it, you get vaccinated. It helps everybody else, and it helps me go to the movies again and go out to eat. So this is Jay from the Educated Retirement Radio, wishing everyone a great weekend. Stay safe. And let me just add, if I can find it real quick, and I probably can't, but that's okay. The words of Duke Ellington, in this case, well, I can't find it real quick.
People retire you, something like that.
Yeah, you don't retire, you get retired or whatever. But I don't remember all of it offhand. But I'll remind us. But I will remind you of one thing, that Jay will be here at the same corner, in front of the same cigar store next week. So have yourself a great, great weekend, and stay safe, enjoy yourself, and here's a couple things. Gray skies are just clouds and passing over. So with that, Passover is over, but take care of yourselves, and thank you so much for sticking with me this long. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.